All right, Shalom. I'd like to start out by saying Kal Halayim La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Harvard Kwadash, my mouth. Double honors to the elder apostles, a great millstone, and my elder Herawan as well. Salutations to the occupant that are pushing this truth to sincerity and truth. And peace and blessings to the men, women, and children that believe in the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. All right, I'm Kanak Sound by Yashar from the Lions and the Yashar camp. And this lesson is going to be off this article that entitled, Why is South Africa's Navy joining exercises with Russia and China? All right. So we all know about the access being formed together with Russia, China, and Iran, and you have other nations that are joining along with it. You know, I just want to go into go into maybe a couple scriptures, but definitely go into this article because this is all according to prophecy, man. The Yahweh Shema Shai is joining these nations up together in alliance to come against the hammer of the earth, which is America. All right. So probably going to get a lot of Isaiah chapter 14 mainly, but there's a lot more scriptures that we can get speaking on this. And Lord willing, this lesson is edifying the service purpose for the hopeful elect, ones that truly believe in the name of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. All right. All right. So now, what times are we in? We're in the times when the Lord is setting up, we're turning back our captivity right before our eyes, you know, and we're able to see through prophecy of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai doing so. All right. This is Isaiah chapter 14, verse 3. It says, And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from thy hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How hath the oppressor ceased? The golden cities cease, right? And that's our focus. The golden city is going to cease because Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai is going to break the scepter of the ruler. All right. The hammer of the earth. He's going to break their scepter. All right. It says South Africa is holding a joint military exercise with Russia and China that opposition's figures say amounts to an endorsement of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The United States had also criticized the 10-day naval drill, which will continue over the first anniversary of the war in Ukraine, but South Africa's government says it remains neutral regarding the conflict and that it routinely hosts similar drills with other countries, including France and the United States. All right, but during a time like this, that's a critical statement to make. Like, if you know somebody got beef in the streets and they, you know what I'm saying, and it could be any given time on site, you're not going to want to hang with them like that. You're not going to want to be associated with like that. So there has to be some type of ulterior motive or agenda with this exercise being done, because the timing. It says, what are South Africa, Russia, and China doing? The naval exercise is called Moshi, which means smoke in the Tswana language, are taking place in the Indian Ocean off the south coast of Africa. The South African National Defense Force says 350 members of its armed forces will take part. Russia has announced it will send its Admiral Gorshkovkov warship, which carries Zircon hypersonic missiles. They fly at 9 times the speed of sound and have a range of 1,000 kilometers, which is 620 miles. Moscow will be trying to show that despite its setback in the war in Ukraine, its armed forces are still very powerful, says Danis Riva from South Africa's Institute of Security Studies. The SANDF has said little about the forthcoming exercise, but at a 2019 joint drill between the three countries involved 7 ships, one warship from each nation, plus fueling ships and survey ships. All right, so that's last time they did it in 2019. Those were the things that it had. All right, it says they practiced tackling coastal fires and floods and recapturing ships from pirates. All right, it says why is this exercise controversial? All right, so the controversy comes from because Yahweh Hashem Yahushai loves controversy. All right, and he has a controversy with Babylon, as it says in the scriptures. All right, it says a White House spokesperson said in January, the United States has concerns about any country exercising with Russia as Russia wages a brutal war against Ukraine. South Africa previously abstained from an UN vote condemning the invasion. It also refused to join the U.S. and Europe in imposing sanctions on Russia. Ooh, that's a kicker. The South African government sparked a political row when it gave permission for a super yacht called the Nord, which is linked to the sanctioned Russian oligarch Alexei Morshadov, to dock in Cape Town, although it is thought the vessel did not actually go there. The sanctioned Russian cargo ship Lady R was also allowed to unload supplies at a South African naval base. The government said it contained a delayed order for ammunition. Oh, so they're going around the sanctions that are being imposed by America, man. Wow, it says South Africa points out it was held 4 joint exercises with the United States since 2011, as well as drills with France and Germany. All countries conduct military exercises with friends worldwide. And Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor, during a visit to her country by her Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in January, she said that trying to stop South Africa from conducting joint military exercises with countries of its choice amounted to an abuse of international practice. All right? So they were like, you can't, yeah, that's abusive. But America's always abusing their power, man. All right? Slack it. This is, all right. This is Isaiah 14:5. It says, the Lord have broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people with continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindered. Right. And because these nations are ganging up against America. All right. And they rule with a continual stroke. That continual stroke was manipulation with the dollar and forceful regime change to prove that to push their agenda, which is a new world order, which mainly being the bullies of the earth, right? So now that rod is not as powerful anymore. Like Elder made the lesson, United States is losing its hegemony. Right? It says, why is South Africa taking part? All right. It says South Africa is also taking part because its armed forces are underfunded and overstretched, according to Elizabeth Siparopoulos, head of South African Institute of International Affairs. The Navy's priorities are to protect fishers and its home waters and combat piracy in the Indian Ocean. It needs to team up with other nations to have the capacity to deal with things off its coast, such as piracy, she says. And you think America is supposed to be so much into democracy and helping these other countries. Why isn't America offering to help with that? No, because they just want to dictate and rule and regulate what goes on in these other nations. All right. It says South Africa's governing African National Congress also had long-standing ties with Russia. These date back to the years of white minority rule before 1994, says Dr. Alex Vines from the the Chatham House think tank in London. The older leaders in the ANC still have an emotional attachment to Moscow because it consistently supported their struggle. He says, this makes it very difficult for South Africa to turn its back on Russia or Ukraine, because at that point in time, I think Ukraine was still part of Russia. So where was America when all this was going on and when the struggle was going on in South Africa? America was nowhere to be found. They didn't give them any help or any alliance, but Russia did. All right, it says Russia, China, and South Africa also have modern day ties because they are all members of the BRICS alliance, man. So who all? Let me see. So I can see what this is real quick. BRICS alliance. All right. BRICS alliance members. Let me try to find this real quick. All right, so it's China, Russia. It's China, India, Russia, South Africa. So Brazil, China, India, Russia, and South Africa. All right, those are the members of the BRICS nations. All right. So going back to the article. So that's the BRICS alliance. It says the group, which also includes Brazil and India, represents some of the world's leading emerging economies. Right, okay. So now these nations are forming their own like little NATO and European Union sector to stop America and NATO's New World Order. All right. But then you got the European Union that are like, hey, you just set up to be the new America talking to China, and we'll just do the rest. But everybody's going to have their form of, that thing to implant into people. Pretty much all these nations are going to conform to some type of monetary system involving the CHIP. All right, so that'll give them ultimate total control in their mind. Then that will be completion of their new world order. It says, what do Russia and China want? All right, it says Miss Siperopoulos says Russia has more to gain than anyone from this year's exercise. It shows that Russia can still protect its power far away, and it still has allies around the world. All right, and that's going into Ezekiel 38. Right, it's going to have an alliance of nations with them. As a matter of fact, let's go on some more into this Isaiah 14. This is Isaiah 14 and 7. It says the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice. Right. So as America begins to crumble, these other nations are going to be rejoicing. All right. It says, yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. Right. So all these kings of the nations are gonna kings of the east are gonna turn and destroy Babylon, man. Come lead by Russia. All right. It says, it lets them say that it's not the world that's against Russia. Only the West is against Russia, right? The West, meaning United States and NATO countries. It says, China is keen to keep shipping lines open for commercial vessels traveling from its ports to Africa, the African destinations, says Dr. Vines. It also wants to establish a naval power in the Indian Ocean off the African coast. It's about getting its navy out into international waters. China already uses Djibouti on the East African coast as a naval base to combat piracy, and perhaps it is hoping to get more bases, right? So now you got these other nations setting up bases around the world, like America's been doing, you know? And these other nations, you're going to see other nations getting involved into the alliance of this new axis being formed, right? Against the allied nations, which would be the NATO nations in America. All right. All being funded by the European Union. So you're going to see not only China, but understand this, that Yahweh Shem Yahushai is against all these. The Most High wants to bring everybody against each other, then bring them together to fight against his son Yahushai and the holy angels, man. This is going to be a classic one right here. The Lord's setting up the stage right now. You can see it being conformed. All right. So, you know, there's another one, article I want to go into. It says China neutrality claim fades with Russia's visit. All right. So I'm gonna end that one right there. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying and served its purpose. With that, I'd like to say, Ka halayim la Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Harikak Wadash Ma'amath. Double honors to the elder apostles, the great millstone, and my elder Herwan as well. Salutations to the Akim that are pushing the truth, the sincerity and truth, and peace and blessings to the men, women, and children that believe in the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Shalom.